let's jump right into things. The biggest programming mistake that I see, the biggest way to mess up your training plan, not the most common, but definitely the biggest, is combining programs. And I've seen this a few times where people come to me and they say, Geoff, Coach Geoff, starting strength, 3 days per week. Steve Reeves, full body workouts, 3 days per week. Oh my God, there are 7 days in a week. What happens if I just combine these programs? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I even still get Sunday off. Is this a good idea? I'm going to make so much more progress, right? No. So any solid program that you find on the internet, or even a custom one that is written by a coach, should ideally be based around the fundamentals. So volume, intensity, frequency, RPE, progression, etc. So your volume, it should be reasonable. Okay, not super high, not super low. That middle of the road volume is going to be what gets you the best results. This is going to be a little bit individual, but it should not be anything extreme in the vast majority of cases. The intensity, the weight on the bar, again, a middle of the road approach is generally a very, very good one. If the weights are super heavy, everything is above 90%, that is not going to be great for most people for most goals. It's good for peaking, but most of the time, you're going to want to be a little bit below that super heavy 90% plus range. Same thing for light weights. Yes, you can, technically speaking, gain muscle at 30% of 1 rep max if you push really hard and you go to failure. But practically speaking, that is not a very efficient way to go about things. Most of your sets should be 60, 70, 80%, somewhere in that range. Same thing with frequency. I would say, generally speaking, twice per week frequency is better than once per week for most people. Not all people, but most people. But when you go to 3, 4, 5, 6 times per week frequency, there's not really a whole lot of additional benefit for most people. Again, some people might find that they do better on this ultra high frequency, but that is not the majority of people. So popular programs work because they are reasonable. They are balanced. They are nothing extreme. So 3 full body workouts per week, that gives you a ton of time to recover. Same thing with the other 3 full body workouts per week plan. If you combine these, you are suddenly not only doing twice as much, you have a lot less time and opportunity to actually recover. So if you're running your own training plan, you should steal brazenly from other creators. Experiment, read a lot, watch a lot of videos, see what works for you. But you also have to keep in mind that you cannot ignore the fundamentals. You cannot just blindly throw a bunch of ingredients into the pot and hope something good comes out.
Carrots, leeks, just 3 or 4 little cloves, good pinch of salt that is just undeniable. Let's cook this for another 10 minutes.
Because more often than not, what comes out is absolutely horrifying. And this goes for diet as well. Veganism, a completely viable way of dieting, and it's getting easier and easier as there are more vegan-friendly options. Keto, also completely fine. Both have their drawbacks, both have their benefits. What if you tried to combine vegan and keto? You don't get something that's better than both vegan and or keto, okay? You get something that is objectively worse because you have so little options in terms of what you can actually eat. You have to go low carb, so you can't eat a lot of vegetables, you can't have starches, you can't have fruits, but you also can't eat meat, you can't eat eggs, you can't eat dairy, you can't eat a lot of the foods that you normally would on a keto diet. So even though you're combining 2 good things, the result is absolute dog shit. So when it comes to fitness or diet or exercise, often 1 + 1 does not equal 2. It doesn't even equal 3 in the vast majority of cases. Usually it equals 1 at best, and often 0 or into the negatives. Let's say you bought my book Sweat and you're reading through the chapter on high intensity techniques, and you're reading about drop sets and partials and isometrics and rest pause and forced reps and all kinds of stuff that you add onto a set to make it more stimulatory. If you add 1, it can be a great way to stimulate new muscle growth. If you add on 3, 4, 5, 6 onto a single set, you'll probably get worse results. It's more, but it's too much. And so you have to keep in mind that stress is a continuum. If you don't stress the body at all, you won't see growth. If you stress it too much, you also won't see growth. You need to take this middle of the road approach, and you need to take a balanced way of looking at your training. Same thing with volume and RPE. A lot of people don't get this even at the highest level. The more sets you do, the easier those sets must be. The fewer sets you do, the harder those sets can be. So there has to be a give and take, a continuum, if you will. So if you're doing super high volume, you're doing 25, 30 sets per muscle group per week, you cannot be going to failure, beyond failure, drop sets, that kind of thing. They're probably going to need to be 4, 5, 6 reps away from failure. And I think it's important to be honest about where you are to failure. Every time I hear someone who does high volume to failure and beyond failure, they are lying. And when you look at the sets, it's not actually to failure. They're not doing those tough, all-out, grindy, soul-ravaging reps that are indicative of true failure. If you're doing low volume, low RPE, basically every set is a warm-up and you're not even doing very many sets, you're training like a... Okay? Just what it is. So if you're training like that versus you're training, every set all out to failure, high volume, both are going to be complete shit. You have to realize there is a give and take to training. So I guess the main message is that anytime you make a program, you need to step back and check the fundamentals to make sure that it actually makes sense. Because it's entirely possible to combine a bunch of stuff and it just doesn't make sense at all. You're either doing too much or not enough, or you're not recovering enough, etc. Plus, it does require a good deal of personal experimentation. On any continuum of frequency, of volume, of intensity, of anything, recovery, whatever, it is going to be fairly individual. And so this is where keeping a training log and being honest with your own assessments is super important. So make sure that your program is balanced, because if you don't, the results will be a little bit suboptimal. Like you'll probably still get results, but they might not be as good as if your program was better. Yeah. Not very good at this whole fear-mongering thing. Alright, that is all for this video. Sorry for the lack of drama, sort of a more educational one. Maybe I'll add something in. Fuck you, V-Shred. There we go. Happy now, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.